All right, it's Monday, and welcome back to Coffee Talk. Now we're going to start changing a few things here on this, um, and hopefully you'll like some of the changes we make. If you don't like any of the changes we made, if you've listened to me long enough, I'm just going to do what I want to do anyway. So let's get started with what I want to do because that's really why it's here. All right. First thing I want to talk about is so Canoo filed for bankruptcy last week and shut all of its operations down. Now people are like, what is, you may not know what Canoo is, you may not have heard of it before. It was another EV company, kind of an EV startup. And the original phases of it, a lot of interest. It had attracted some, I guess, some cross promote or cross development interest with Apple when Apple was working on their own EV. And then this guy got involved. And if you're in the industry, you recognize him from Solera, which is Auditex for the rest of us. And so if you want to know whatever happened to Auditex and why it became what it became today, well, you're looking at him right there. There's Tony. And you can go research some of the issues, the lawsuits with Solera, the house that was in Dallas that made the market and ended up being a jalopnik story and a lot of other things there. But anyway, they started having a lot of trouble. They had originally announced that they were going to be moving their factory operations out of Oklahoma and into Arkansas, which made it kind of in my backyard. A lot of people I know in the industry went to work for them. There was discussions on developing collision repair procedures for them. Some really great people had gone there and didn't stay long before they left. When Arkansas Business Magazine ran the article on Tony and the potential of the factory coming to Arkansas, the editor of the magazine is a friend, like long term, like known each other since kindergarten. And I remember firing off an email and going, "Don't ever publish or trust anything Tony tells you or says is going to happen." And here is kind of the proof of that. So basically, company starts off, got great ideas working with Apple. Tony comes along, takes kind of a controlling interest in an investment, becomes the chairman and CEO, and pivots the company. Now, anything he gets his hands on takes about 27 pivots. And if you look at everything Solera acquired, all the different companies, but never really found a way to make those companies work together. That's kind of the background there. But what was really interesting is if you look at some of the allegations and issues back from Solera, and then we come to Canoo and find out that Tony was paying himself to rent his own plane to fly around for his own company. And in fact, he was spending double the merger revenue on renting his own plane. But that's okay, because when the company got in trouble here, he loaned his own company money back, but he secured it in documents and loan documents that secured it with the equipment that is in the Oklahoma factory. So will be kind of interesting to see how this plays out. If you've been in the industry a long time, you might have gone to some event where Tony has spoken. You might have been an insurer that banned him from coming to your home office. Like there's just a lot of history there. So just for those of you people around 20, 30 years that have all that history in the industry, just a little update there for you on what's happened with Tony. All right, what's next on our list? Okay, this one's very interesting to me because for the last several episodes, we have covered what's going on in the world of ADAS and litigation and possible exposure for you as body shops and things that we're concerned with. This one is interesting for me just because okay. So when we had the John Eagle lawsuit, most people commented how absurd it was that the Sheba Shans even got to make a claim, right? Like you had a car, had a truck, a big Toyota Tundra that crosses the center line and hits a car. That the severity of the accident and the two differences in the objects involved in the accident were what really were the causes of X, Y, and Z to happen. And a lot of people felt it wasn't fair that the body shop had that on them. I personally felt it was completely fair based on the way the car was repaired. But that was some of the feeling. So now let's take this one for instance. So we had an accident in 2018 where a 2016 Honda CRV crossed the center line and hit a 2011 Ford. Head-on collision. Both drivers of both vehicles passed away. In 2018, the driver of the Honda, who her husband filed a lawsuit against Honda. The premise of this lawsuit was that the Honda was not safe because it did not have ADAS features. So it believed that the absence of the ADAS features on that vehicle made it unsafe to operate, and they filed suit under the under law, the product liability law in New Jersey, right? People can purchase a car for whatever options they want on it, right? More options, more money. People can, and we know you can, some of these features, lane keep assist was the one that was in question here in this case. You can turn certain features off and on. Sometimes I get in a rental car and maybe that particular model has an audible for when you get too close to one of the lines or whatever, and you turn it off, right? But they allege that because this 2016 wasn't equipped with lane keep assist, it was their car that was the cause of the accident that crossed the center line, hit the other car head on, that was somehow Honda's fault. Now, thankfully, Honda wins this one, which is good news, right? The other part of this that makes this such an interesting story for us in collision repair is we think about lane keep assist, right? How it works. So my encouragement to you today is, when this one is over, is to research how lane keep assist works and what things would affect that. Might it be the squareness or having the geometry of the vehicle correctly? So are you pre-measuring and post-measuring and ensuring that the vehicles are structurally accurate, that the algorithm to make X work or whatever it sees is right? Does it work clearly on vision? So is it camera operated? So I always tell people, well, how do you think some of this stuff works at night? Well, it has to see, right? If it doesn't see that line, or it doesn't see it in enough time, or it doesn't see that deer or whatever that's ran out in the road. So at nighttime, our headlights are now a safety item, right? Well, headlights were always safety, but we used to worry about whether one was pointed up and one was pointed down, and how, or if it was pointed in the eyes of the other driver and all that. But now it's got to see the road so that certain things can exist. So when we think about all of this stuff, if I've got a suit that's willing to go to court, this whole timeline of this is accidents in 2018, or accidents in 2016, husband files in 2018. There are multiple like motions, verdicts, trial 2020, 2022, 2023, and now on the appeal here in 2025. I don't even want to know what Honda's legal bills are on this one, right? To defend it, even to win. Like, so what is it? There's the cost of winning as much as there is the cost of losing. So from 2018 to 2025, Honda's been spending money on this litigation. So when we think about ADAS, if cases like this can go forward, the law firm on this one, Honda hired a really good law firm, kudos, did a good job. In the law journal, you can read, I mean, there's most of the stuff, there's a lot of the court and the motions and the hearings and the documentation and the testimony and all this you can go through. But New Jersey Law Journal, there was an interview or a quote from the attorney that represented Honda, and it just says, it's an important precedent in reaffirming critical product liability principles in the emerging area of ADAS technology litigation. When an OE and their law firm states an emerging an emerging level of ADAS litigation, what we're talking about and what we're seeing is on the uptick. We're going to be slap in the middle of it. Like we always say, people like to go to the OE for those cases. In collision repair, we're going to be there. We're going to be vulnerable just by the nature of what we do. I don't think there's any way to be perfect in fixing a car. I don't think there's any way to catch everything. Like our job is to research stuff, and we still consistently find things. So we have a service called Pick a Tech. It's a texting service you can join, and it's just, Larry and Jason and technicians helping technicians and helping research and liaisoning with the OEs and trying to get help where you need it most, which is in time, on demand at the car. And so Jason's doing that every day, and occasionally he'll shoot a text over and go, hey, look what I found. If we're just now discovering it and finding it, I don't know how a technician or an estimator in the throes of this environment and fixing cars and answering phones and talking to insurance companies and doing all that, how they get it to. So just be very aware that you need to, and I'm gonna harp on this all of 2025. Probably every coffee talk is going to be some sort of ADAS thing to speak of. But it's just going to be very, very important that you going forward, like we said last week, you need to sit down with your business attorney. You need to go over all of this with them. You too need to figure out what your best practices or your SOP for your business is going to be on how to handle these. Not a vendor, not your jobber who's coming in to sell you. They've got a sale for $200 off of this tablet or that tablet, not a presentation at an industry event. For as I don't like a lot of the industry events and I don't like a lot of the associations that are out there, but we got to be honest. A lot of people get to present or be on stage or do a lot of things because it's pay to play. They're a sponsor. We put them on a panel discussion. They're a sponsor. We give them a speaking opportunity, right? That's how those associations stay open. I get it. But sometimes the audience thinks that, well, if this wasn't good, my association or this industry event would not have allowed this person to speak. So in a way, when you put them on a stage, you're validating them. You're telling shops that this is okay. So don't listen just necessarily. There's some great information out there, but like trust but verify. So get with your attorney and make sure that you guys have a plan that you're comfortable with. What kind of tooling are you using? Is it OE or is it aftermarket? If you're using a third-party vendor, do you know what they're doing? Like you can't just go, well, we hired these guys, right? And that includes the pass-through services. So the three major pass-through services in the industry. If you believe that you have told them in your contract that you are OE scan tool only, that they are not to use any aftermarket scans, then monthly you need to be reviewing all your invoices. For every scan, you need to make sure your employees understand that they're supposed to tell them we will not accept anything other than OE, so that there is a confirmation, a conversation between, the person on the other end of the line that may be in Mexico talking to you or in some other part of the world while they're connected to a scan tool, that they understand what tool you want. No field technician gets to make the decision on what tool is or isn't needed. So I've got a vendor that says, well, we let our tech make the decision. The hell you do, right? Like it's if I set it up at the shop owner and I want all OE, that's what we're going to have. But these type of cases, when you think about like how, I don't want to say absurd, that's not the right word. How crazy it is to think that there's a lawsuit filed because a 2016 car bought off the lot, selectively purchased. You chose what you wanted or what you didn't want in the car. Ends up with a product liability over ADAS. So I think this law firm is right. There's this emerging field of ADAS litigation that's coming. People are learning their way through it. They're going to get better at it as they go. We just don't want to be the test case for the things that go bad the most. All right, what's next? Car theft. I would have thought by now. I think I never would have dreamed. I started, my mom went into labor in the paint booth. We always joke about that kind of thing. But I don't think I ever would have thought I'd get to 2025 and car theft would be an issue. I really thought technology would have handled that by now. I remember being at corporate years ago, and there was this kid, I think he was like 10 years old, and he was famous for being able to break into cars in like 3 seconds. And I think it was the Dodge Ram trucks. You could just basically punch the door handle, get in the trucks and take off with them. And so there was this 10-year-old kid that was stealing cars in like 10 seconds. It was incredible. And I remember them doing a demo and the kid doing a demo and stealing cars and everything. And I just was thinking, well, this, technology is going to make this obsolete. It's going to make it impossible to steal a car. And I am amazed that really how rapid theft is on the rise. So car theft is on the rise. It's drastically on the rise right now. Where do you fall, right? So the number one state for car thefts, nothing new, California. Some of them you see kind of make you scratch your head a little bit, like Missouri is in the top 10 of car thefts. I probably wouldn't have thought that usually. And Colorado's in there at number 6. So if you're one of those states, if you're California, Texas, Florida, Washington, Illinois, Colorado, New York, Ohio, Georgia, and Missouri, you are probably dealing with recovered thefts because the insurance industry and their report said about 84% of reported thefts are recovered. So those recovered cars come back, and then we've got to figure out how to do it. If you look over here in the cities, Pueblo, Colorado, the Denver Lakewood area, so kind of like southwest or southeast Colorado over in there. I had a claims office in Aurora that I worked in for a long time. Memphis, Tennessee, yeah, we're holding it down here in Arkansas. Greeley, Colorado, there was a claims office in Greeley, Colorado as well. The total loss units were mostly in Greeley, Colorado. Kansas City, Missouri. If you're in those cities, then you're probably you're seeing more thefts than kind of the rest of us in the country. Top models are still Kia and Hyundai on theft. But if you are seeing those, there's when those are recovered, there are some processes that you need to go through. So if we're going to talk about crazy lawsuits like that Honda one, everybody saw the VRBO case in Florida where this family rented a home and they were allowing a child to run around and like crawl around on the floors or whatever, and eventually the child passes away from fentanyl exposure. And they sue the house and the people that own the house because there was a cleaning fee assigned in the rental agreement. So whoever had rented it before, sounds like they threw a wild party, but there was a cleaning fee and they alleged that the house wasn't cleaned enough. So now we think about that in the collision industry. So one, recovered thefts have a lot of things that could be wrong with them. We want to make sure they're mechanically sound. We want to make sure that they are, structurally sound. You want to go through everything. You want to have some testing done on interior exposures for the time that car was out of the hands and care, custody, and control of the consumer. What possibly could it have been exposed to? I see a lot of people bring these in and they just kind of go, well, I'm going to do a $125 detail job, clean the interior and send it on. It's just a recovered theft. I see a lot of people complain about more detailed estimates for cleaning and checking and doing things that you're just trying to take money from an insurance company. But there is an exposure, right? Like if Honda can get sued over a car purchased in 2016 that was purchased without ADAS, then think about what happens if something goes wrong on one of these recovered theft vehicles if it comes to your shop. If you don't know how to estimate a recovered theft, this is my shameless plug. We have a recovered theft estimating class. And interestingly enough, the shop that assisted with this is in northern Denver. So they see a lot of stolen theft recoveries, and they jumped in and kind of helped Larry. In New York, there's a lot of thefts there. The brands that Larry works with, he doesn't get a lot of theft recoveries. He gets a lot of busted glass, kind of the theft of interior, trying to get a purse or whatever. But took the car for a joyride for 24 hours and left it in the Walmart parking lot. Not really his thing. So we got with a shop out of North Colorado, and they worked really hard and put this great class together. So if you are seeing recovered thefts and you're interested in how to access, how to correctly address all concerns, not just for the policyholder, right? We want to make sure that vehicle, I always say, my luck, they'd steal my car and they'd be the one doing the donuts in the parking lot, and I'd have suspension damage. I'd need tires. I would need all of these kind of things. So if you don't know how to estimate that, then you can get that class. I didn't put the class up on the website, so you're going to have to send Melanie an email and ask for it. So if you send Melanie an email and ask her for the theft class, she'll get you hooked up. Larry did a great job with that class, so it is a good one to go through. All right. Last thing I want to cover today is we've occasionally talked about some stories, some case studies with some shops that are having success in what they're doing. I like to share this one. I got a gift package. I was gone this weekend, and I came back and I had a really nice little gift on the front porch from this company. So I thought, interesting. And it turns out to be something else, which I may cover next week. It's not very often that the old neighbor tells me thank you for something and I get a thank you package from Bloomington. I usually, when I look down and see that area code on my phone, I'm like, oh, I'm about to get chewed out. This is kind of interesting. That was never an area code that you wanted to see pop up on your phone. But let's talk about this one. So we had a total loss. One of our shops is in our C20 VIP group. And has been through all the training and has made the adjustments to their shop accordingly. I sent a message and said just basically they had a total loss that had been on the shop lot for 4 months, and the current charges were $6,000. The shop had all the executed paperwork. and every 48 hours had sent the notifications of the charges are now X, the charges are now X. So it's very important that you establish that timeline of the charges changing. We don't wait until somebody calls us and says, what's charges on that car almost in Copart? You don't wait to tally it up. It should never be a surprise, right? So the shop had done a really good job. State Farm called the shop and said, look, we're going to give you $2,000, or, we're going to get an attorney and we're going to do whatever. Shop didn't flinch because they knew they had their paperwork. Do I say never settle? No. I mean, if State Farm had said, I'll give you $5,000 if you'll release it today, that probably would have been a good settlement. It wouldn't have bothered, or I wouldn't have thought less of the shop for doing that. Remember, Honda spent how many years from 2020 to 2025 defending something where they were right, but the cost of being right was pretty significant to them. And I don't have Honda pockets, and I know this shop doesn't have Honda pockets either. So is that like a hot pocket? I don't know. Maybe we could do a commercial, the Honda pocket. I don't know. Maybe find something there. Okay. So State Farm did. They went and hired an attorney. A couple of days later, the shop gets a call from an attorney. He had been hired by State Farm, so it was not in-house counsel. It was, they had hired somebody from outside the firm, or from outside the company, to represent them. So that attorney calls the shop. It was a very short conversation. This is the same conversation that we've had several shops across the country have, specifically with State Farm. So Ohio, Florida, multiple places. The adjuster does the whole, I'm going to take my ball and go home thing from the sand trap. And they hire an attorney, and they're kind of going, I'm about to show this shop. We're going to get them. Well, what were they wanting to do? They were wanting to do replevin. So basically, I'm going to come jack the car from you. You're not going to have the car as leverage, and then we'll dispute your charges at a later date. So State Farm's attorney calls the shop and says he just went over all of the documents. So we go back to that total loss class. He didn't even move forward. So he basically said, I see you have addressed the right to replevin. Yeah, no crap. We know that's the play. Most shops feel very powerful when you have the car. In fact, I see it all the time, still in groups, when people are posting about, I've got this charge, and the insurance company said they weren't going to pay my charges, so they were going to take it out of the customer or do whatever. And you see somebody that says, as long as you got the car, they got to pay you. No, they don't, right? Like that's a false sense of security. So if I can take that car away from you, it generally scares you, and then you're more apt to settle with me at that point. So he says, I can see from your forms you addressed it. And then here is the next statement. I will get with State Farm and get this handled right away so that you are compensated and we get this vehicle off of your property. That's how good that paperwork is. I didn't do that. It's not like my class is so amazing. That's Erica Eversman's paperwork. Like, I always say the beauty of our C20 group and the experts that we have collected from the team at Zimmerman's. So Danian and Jim that run the refinishing group, Rachel that runs the business owners money and financial group. Larry runs estimating. I mean, the group of experts that we've collected in that 20 group are specifically curated because they are experts at little different areas, and then together it's a pretty great group. I feel like it's like the Avengers almost. You just collect the knowledge. No one can know anything. Erica I did battle with her when I was on the other side of the fence, did battle with Larry from the other side of the fence. And so you learn through losing. Every time something didn't go right, you make an adjustment to the contract, right? And the contract right now is on its 19th revision. But you can get a copy of that. You need to go through that class and learn everything that's in the class about the documentation that goes with it. Sure, the contract was great. The documentation that the shop had that supported that over the 2 months was really the kicker. But when you do it right and a real attorney sits down and looks at that, they're like, you owe that. Like you're going to want to pay that, and you're not going to want to wait too much longer before you get that paid, because you're exposing the customer to some detriment because of that. If you have not taken that class, I saw recently that there are some people, 5 years ago, I think it's 5, 6 years, the total loss class is that old. I think one of the first times I delivered it was in like Chicago. I think I delivered it out in Chicago or whatever. That class is 5 or 6 years old. When I started talking about how total losses were going to become revenue centric for body shops, because total losses were going to go up to 46, 47% by the end of 2026 versus 2027, everybody kind of laughed. I think the industry had a really good laugh. She doesn't know what she's talking about. She's just trying to sell a class. This is stupid. We can't total cars, or shops will close. I get it. But now here we are in 2025, and at the end of 2024, the people that had been saying for the last 4 or 5 years that the total loss class was dumb are now teaching their own class, and some of them are even trying to discuss replevin. They're a little wrong in how they presented it. I think that's what happens when you don't fully understand the topic and you just hear about it and you want to throw that in your slides too, and move on. If Erica is teaching a course on total loss handling and settlement, go to it. She's the best, right? That's who you need to get it from. Other than that, careful who you listen to. Ask them what their credentials are. Ask them how many years they had been settling total losses and litigation around total losses and handling replevin cases and all that. And if they've got the background, go for it. If they don't, we got a class online, and you can take it, and it comes with the forms. It comes with template communication. So emails that you can copy and paste so that you can, always make sure you're communicating correctly and consistently. And it comes with a fee schedule. I've shared my fee schedule and kind of what those definitions are, so that I always tell people you can't just charge something. You can't just write $300 or 4 hours on an estimate. You need to have a detailed explanation of what that fee covers, and it needs to be repeatable. So if there are 3 of you in your office and I get the 3 of you at different times, you should all 3 tell me the same thing. If I talk to 3 different estimators at your building and I get 3 different answers of what the charge is and what it includes and what it doesn't include, we have a problem. So the State Farm total loss class, anyway, I do have a State Farm class. It's called I Got a State Farm Problem. So if you have State Farm problems and you want to take a State Farm class, there's them there. But if you have total loss questions, you got to get this right. 2025 is really the last year you're going to have to really get this process right. Get it specific for your shop, specific for your laws. Every state has different laws, which you can and can't charge, from California to Louisiana for storage fees. Everybody's got nuances. Some exciting litigation out of Florida recently. So we may have some changes in Florida and assignment of proceeds and some other things that are going down there. But everybody's got something different. So make sure that you're compliant with your state laws. Make sure this may be another thing you want to discuss with your attorney, since the insurance companies are willing to go hire outside counsel to try to litigate around total losses. They are also willing to litigate around old total losses. So we have shops that get served on total losses that were paid and removed from their property up to 2 years ago. And now the insurance company is asking for a refund. So make sure that you have another meeting and you and your attorney have a detailed process that they approve of, that they know is based in your state law, that they can defend you with, to make sure that you get this down. But then the other thing is that just make sure you get paid. If you can't make money off total losses and suddenly, let's say 15 or 20% of your existing revenue around repairables disappears and become a total loss, you can't just have a disappearance of 15 to 20% of your revenue. It's got to come back from somewhere else. So make sure you have it. If you can't find that on the website, then you can always just email Melanie. We tell everybody Melanie answers all the questions. And she will get you set up. There's a total loss package that has the documentations class, the total loss class, and the communications. Or you can just take the total loss class as a standalone if you just want to listen to it. But make sure you get it there. I love getting these. I love it when outside counsel looks at the paperwork and goes, yeah, we live to fight another day. Pay this one or whatever. So Erica's done an amazing and wonderful job with that. That's not me. I have my insurance side of the equation in there, but at the end of the day, it's her legal stuff, and I don't think there's anybody that does it better, right? There's one person I never wanted to see when I was the other side, and the one person now that whatever she says, just not gonna question her. We have nice talks, but I'm not gonna question her. So I hope everybody has a great week. It is going to be a busy week as we head into, we're done with the first month of 2025, right? The year's already starting to slip away. So just make sure you get things right. If you need anything, well, you can always reach us on the website, and we will see you next week on Coffee Talk.